Welcome to Bible Quizzes. My name is Brianda, and I'm going to be your host for this quiz. Remember, you only have 5 seconds after I say each question before I reveal the answer. Good luck. Which chapter of Genesis talks about the Garden of Eden? Genesis 1, Genesis 3, Genesis 2, or Genesis 4? Genesis 2. Genesis 2:8. The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. The river in Eden parted into how many riverheads? 2, 4, 5, or 7? 4. Genesis 2:10. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became 4 riverheads. What question did the serpent ask Eve? Has God indeed said, "You shall not eat the tree in the middle of the garden"? Why has God forbidden you from the tree? Has God indeed said, "You shall not eat of every tree of the garden"? Do you trust God's command? Has God indeed said, "You shall not eat of every tree of the garden"? Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God indeed said, 'You shall not eat of every tree of the garden'?" Whom did God task to name the animals? Adam, Eve, Seth, or Noah? Adam. Genesis 2:19. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. Which of Adam's sons is said to be in his image? Cain, Abel, Seth, or all of the above? Seth. Genesis 5:3. And Adam lived 130 years, and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, named him Seth. Who was Sarah's father? Laban, Haran, Nahor, or Terah? Terah. Abraham and Sarah shared a father, therefore Terah was Sarah's father. Genesis 20:12. But indeed she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. Who told Jacob, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh"? Rachel, Laban, Leah, or Esau? Laban. Genesis 29:14. Then it came to pass, when Laban heard the report about Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him and kissed him. And Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." Which wives did Esau marry that displeased his parents? The daughters of Heth, the daughters of Ishmael, the daughters of Shechem, or the daughters of Lot? The daughters of Heth. Genesis 26:34-35. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Judith and the daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. What was the texture of Esau's skin? Smooth, leprous, scaly, or hairy? Hairy. Genesis 25:25. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over. So they called his name Esau. What did Judah want to do when he was told Tamar was pregnant? Imprison her, stone her, burn her, or banish her? Burn her. Genesis 38:24. And it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry. So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. How many times did Potiphar's wife entice Joseph to sleep with her? Once, thrice, twice, or daily? Daily. Genesis 39:10. So it was, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her, to lie with her or to be with her. What did Judah give Tamar after he slept with her? His signet, his staff, his cord, or all of the above? All of the above. Genesis 38:18. Then he said, What pledge shall I give you? So she said, Your signet and cord, and your staff that is in your hand. Then he gave them to her, and went into her, and she conceived by him. Who among Judah's sons was killed by God for spilling seed on the ground? Shelah, Er, Onan, or Perez? Onan. Genesis 38:9-10. But Onan knew that their hair would not be his, when he went into his brother's wife, that he emitted into the ground, lest he should give her hair to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he killed him also. Whom did Lot offer to give to the men of Sodom instead of his divine guests? His daughters, his servants, his sons-in-law, or his wife? His daughters. Genesis 19:8. See now, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you, and you may to do them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under my roof. What did the angel strike the men of Sodom with at Lot's house? Fear, blindness, fire, or boils? Blindness. Genesis 19:11. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so they became weary trying to find the door. Who was struck with barrenness in his household for taking Abraham's wife? Pharaoh, Tamar, Abimelech, or Laban? Abimelech. Genesis 20:18. For the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. What did Adam and Eve use to cover their nakedness after they sinned? Animal skins, linen cloth, wool garments, or fig leaves? Fig leaves. Genesis 3:7. Then the eye of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. Who did Eve blame for eating the forbidden fruit? The serpent. Genesis 3:13. And the Lord said to the woman, What is this you have done? The woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Why did Jacob curse Reuben? He betrayed Joseph. He defiled Jacob's bed. He lied to Jacob, or he plotted the attack on Joseph. He defiled Jacob's bed. Genesis 49:4. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellence of dignity and excellency of power. Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. Who among Jacob's sons did he bless with the blessings of heaven? earth and beneath. Joseph, Judah, Benjamin, or Issachar. Joseph. 49:25. By the God of your father who will help you, and by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and the womb. Who among Jacob's sons did he bless, saying, You are who your brothers will praise? Judah, Levi, Joseph, or Simeon? Judah, Genesis 49:8. Judah, do are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. How long did Jacob serve Laban before he was given Leah for a wife? 5 years, 12 years, 7 years, or 14 years? 7 years. Genesis 29:20. So Jacob served 7 years of Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. Now it came to pass in the evening that he looked Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went eat her. Whose nurse was Deborah? Rebekah's, Rachel's, Leah's, or Sarah's? Rebekah's. Genesis 35:8. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried below Bethel under the terebinth tree. So the name of it was called Elim Bachuth. Who among Jacob's wives was buried in the same tomb with Sarah? Zilpah, Bilhah, Leah, or Rachel? Leah, Genesis 49:31. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. Who among Jacob's wives died on the way to Ephrath? Zilpah, Bilhah, Leah, or Rachel? Rachel, Genesis 35:19. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. What did God ask Abraham to count? Stars, trees, sheep, or grains of wheat? Stars, Genesis 15:5. Then he brought him outside and said, Look now toward heaven, and count the stars if you are able to number them. And he said to him, So shall your descendants be. What passed between the sacrifices Abraham had offered during the making of his covenant? A pillar of fire, a dove, a flaming torch and smoking oven, or a cloud of darkness? A flaming torch and smoking oven. Genesis 15:17. And it came to pass, when the sun went down and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and burning torch that passes between those pieces. What did Abraham say they were going to do when he was intending to sacrifice Isaac? Pray, worship, sacrifice an offering, or build an altar? Worship. Genesis 22:5. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go to yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. On which mountain was Abraham intending to sacrifice Isaac? Mount Moriah. Genesis 22:2. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and you got to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on known mountains of which I shall tell you. Which animal did Abraham sacrifice instead of his son? a ram, a goat, a bull, or a donkey? A ram. Genesis 22:13. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram, and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. How old was Noah when he had his sons? 100 years, 500 years, 300 years, or 700 years old? 500 years old. Genesis 5:32. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. How many of the clean birds did Noah let into the ark? A pair, 5 pairs, 2 pairs, or 7 pairs? 7 pairs. Genesis 7:2-3. You shall take with you 7 of each clean animal, a male and his female, 2 of each animal that are unclean, a male and his female, also 7 of each birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive. Why did Noah curse Canaan? His father Ham's son Noah's nakedness. He sinned against God. He mocked Noah, or he defiled the ark. His father Ham's son Noah's nakedness. Genesis 9:24-25. So Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. How many stories were in the ark? 2, 3, 4, or 5? 3. Genesis 6:16. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to cube it from above, and set the door of the ark in its side. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. On which mountain did the ark rest? Mount Zion, Mount Sinai, Mount Moriah, or Mount Ararat? Mount Ararat. Genesis 8:4. Then the ark rested in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat. Why was Cain angry? Abel refused to help him. God rebuked him from sin. He was jealous of Abel's flock. Abel's suffering was accepted, but his was not. Abel's suffering was accepted, but his was not. Genesis 4:5. But he did not respect Cain and his suffering, and Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. What did God create on the 3rd day? Animals, sun and moon, plants, or fish? Plants. Genesis 1:12. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the 3rd day. What was Abraham's relationship with Mamre, Eshcol, and Aner? Brothers, allies, enemies, or neighbors? Allies. Genesis 14:13. Then one who had escaped came and told Abraham the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of the Mamre of Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and there were allies with Abraham. Who had Abraham appointed heirs of his possession before Isaac was born? Eliezer of Damascus, Ishmael, Lot, or Mamre? Eliezer of Damascus. Genesis 15:2. But Abram said, Lord God, what will you give me, seeing so I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? How many trained servants born in his house accompanied Abraham in the battle to free Lot? 154, 170, 318, or 408, 420? 318. Genesis 14:14. Now, when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went to pursue as far as Dan. What instruction did the angels give Lot and his family as they fled from Sodom? Do not look behind you. Stay close together. Take as much as you can carry, or escape to the plains. Do not look behind you. Genesis 19:17. So it came to pass, when they had brought them outside, that he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind, nor you stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. Besides fire, what else did God use to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? A great wind, earthquake, brimstone, or hailstones? Brimstone, Genesis 19:24. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Who else besides his immediate family did Lot try to convince to flee from Sodom? His friends, his sons-in-law, his neighbors, or his servants? His sons-in-law, Genesis 19:14. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But to his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking. Who suggested the separation between Abraham and Lot? God, Lot, Sarah, or Abraham? Abraham, Genesis 13:8-9. So Abram said to Lot, please, let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. It's not the whole land before you. Please separate from me. How many years did Enoch walk with God before God took him? 365 years. Genesis 5:24. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. What was Nimrod known for? Being a great hunter before the Lord, building the Tower of Babel, discovering precious stones, or leading the people of Shinar? Being a great hunter before the Lord. Genesis 10:9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Who was the father to Methuselah? Lamech, Noah, Enoch, or Cain? Enoch, Genesis 5:22. Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. After he begat Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. Who was the mother of Dinah, Jacob's daughter? Leah, Zilpah, Rachel, or Bilhah? Leah, Genesis 30:21. And Leah said, now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called him his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. Who was the other son of Rachel besides Joseph? Judah, Levi, Benjamin, or Gad? Benjamin, Genesis 35:18. And so it was, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. Who was nicknamed the dreamer by his brothers? Judah, Issachar, Naphtali, or Joseph? Joseph, Genesis 37:19. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now, when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming." Joseph brought a bad report to his father about the sons of who? Zilpah, Rachel, Bilhah, or Leah? Zilpah and Bilhah. Genesis 37:2. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. His father's wives and Joseph brought a bad report of them. Who among Joseph's brothers was secretly planning to rescue him from their hands? Simeon, Levi, Judah, or Reuben? Reuben, Genesis 37:21-22. And Reuben said to them, "Shed not blood, but cast him into the pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay an hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father." How many years of famine did Joseph prophesy over Egypt as per Pharaoh's dream? 6 years, 12 years, 7 years, or 14 years? 7 years. Genesis 41:30. But after them 7 years of famine will arise, and all plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will deplete the land. Who was the second son born to Leah? Simeon, Genesis 29:33. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also." And she called his name Simeon. What does the Bible say about Leah's eyes? They were beautiful. She was blind. They were delicate. They were green. They were delicate. Genesis 29:17. Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. Who asked to be given the mandrake that Reuben had brought to Leah? Rachel, Zilpah, Bilhah, or Sarah? Rachel, Genesis 30:14. Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." Who said to her husband, "Give me children or else I die"? Rebecca, Leah, Rachel, or Sarah? Rachel, Genesis 31. Now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel invited her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." What attitude did Hagar have towards Sarah after she conceived? She prayed for Sarah. She despised Sarah. She honored Sarah, or she loved Sarah. She despised Sarah. Genesis 16:4. So he went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. What did Pharaoh do to Joseph after he interpreted the dream? Gave him golden land? Made him second in command over Egypt? Paid him money? Or gave him his daughter for marriage? Made him second in command over Egypt. Genesis 41:41. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Which of her sons did Leah name, saying, "Now my husband will love me"? Judah, Reuben, Levi, or Simeon? Reuben, Genesis 29:32. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, "The Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me." Whom did Rachel give to her husband to bear children on her behalf? Bilhah, Silpah, Deborah, or Tamar? Bilhah, Genesis 33. So she said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her." What was the name of Bethel before Jacob named it so? Shechem, Hebron, Luz, or Canaan? Luz, Genesis 28:19. And he called the name of the place Bethel, but the name of the city had been Luz previously. What did Esau plan to do to Jacob for stealing his blessings? Demand for restitution, send him away, kill him, or forgive him? Kill him. Genesis 27:41. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Who was Rebekah's favorite son? Esau? Jacob? She loved her children equally, or it is not mentioned? Jacob, Genesis 25:28. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Who stole Laban's idols? Bilhah, Silpah, Rachel, or Leah? Rachel, Genesis 31:19. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. Who grabbed his brother's heel at birth? Ishmael, Jacob, Isaac, or Esau? Jacob, Genesis 25:26. Afterward his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Who had children struggling in the womb while pregnant? Sarah, Tamar, Leah, or Rebekah? Rebekah, Genesis 25:22. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If all is well, why am I like this?" So she, Rebekah, went to inquire of the Lord. What did Isaac do for his barren wife to conceive? He gave her herbs. He offered a sacrifice. He made a vow to God, or he prayed to the Lord. He prayed to the Lord. Genesis 25:21. Now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because he was barren, and the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. What was Jacob's reaction when he first saw Rachel by the well? He kissed her and wept. He gave her jewelry. He greeted her and leapt, or he bowed to the ground. He kissed her and wept. Genesis 29:11. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Who was commanded by God not to go to Egypt during famine? Abraham, Joseph, Jacob, or Isaac? Isaac, Genesis 26:2. Then the Lord appeared to him, Isaac, and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land of which I shall tell you." How old was Isaac when he was circumcised? 8 days, 8 months, 8 weeks, or 8 years? 8 days. Genesis 21:4. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. What test did Abraham's servant use to know the right bride for Isaac? She would bring food to his servants. She would greet him warmly. She would give him and his camels water. She would recognize him as Abraham's servant. She would give him and his camels water. Genesis 24:14. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your pitcher that I may drink. And she says, drink, and I will also give your camels a drink. Let her be the one you have appointed for your servant Isaac. What did the people use to build the Tower of Babel? Brick and asphalt, marble and iron, wood and clay, or stones and mortar? Brick and asphalt. Genesis 11:3. Then they say to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had bricks for stone and they had asphalt for mortar. Who advised Abraham to have children with Hagar? Lot, Sarah, Eliezer, or Mamre? Sarah, Genesis 16:2. So Sarai said to Abram, see now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please, go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her. And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. What did Abraham purchase from the Hittites for 400 shekels of silver? A field in the cave, a slave, a well, or a flock of sheep? A field in a cave. Genesis 23:16-17. Abraham weighed out the silver of Ephron, 400 shekels of silver. So the field of Ephron, which was Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and a cave which was in it, were deeded. What was the name of Abraham's second wife? Tamar, Kirjath, Keturah, or Bilhah? Keturah, Genesis 25:1. Abraham again took a wife, and her name was Keturah. How old was Isaac when he died? 120 years, 180 years, 157 years, or 200 years? $180. Genesis 35:28-29. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. So Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. For how many shekels of silver was Joseph sold to the Ishmaelites? 17 shekels, 30 shekels, 20 shekels, or 70 shekels? 20 shekels. Genesis 37:28. Then Midianite traders passed by. So the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. In what area of Egypt did Jacob and his family settle? Memphis, Sinai, Thebes, or Goshen? Goshen, Genesis 47:6. The land of Egypt is before you. Have your father and brothers dwell in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know any competent man among them, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock. Who among Joseph's brothers proposed he be sold? Judah, Reuben, Levi, or Simeon? Judah, Genesis 37:26-27. So Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let you sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh."